Hello and welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Angie, and Angie is a sustainable success mentor, author, and podcaster. She helps ambitious individuals create success on their terms without having to burn out or sacrifice friends, family, or health in the process. In her memoir, Spiritual Lawyer, she shares how she went from lawyer to modern mystic. Her first encounter with angels was on September 2001, but it took another couple of years before a psychic told her something that changed her life. She had angel dust coming out of her hands. What an absolutely intriguing story, Angie. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Dagmar. First, I'm a big fan of your podcast, and I love the stories that you share. Um, I don't know what else to add to what you've just said right now. Yes, I used to be a lawyer. I absolutely loved my job. There's no doubt about this, and I felt privileged to travel the world with it, meet incredibly interesting people, work on intellectually stimulating work. But there was always that little voice inside thinking, I think there's more to it. I wanted to make an impact on a personal level, and I felt that the corporate world was too much about the money. Um, and not enough about the people. Now, I know that things have changed quite a lot since, and there's a lot of social enterprises, which really makes me happy. But I was sort of, I suppose, I think that I was spit out of the corporate world so that I could go my own way. Because up to that point, I had been the good girl. I studied well, I made my parents proud, I got married, I had children. And then this is, I think, the reason why people have a midlife crisis. When I reached my mid 30s, I was like, yeah, but why am I not more happy with all the things that I have and all the trappings? There's got to be something more to life than this. And what's interesting is, sadly, I divorced my husband, moved to the UK, and I went to see a psychic who helped me tremendously make that move because I had two small children under 6, which is quite a big, even if it's just from France to the UK, it's still a big move.
Yeah.
You lose your support system, you lose the grandparents, not to mention I was becoming a single mum. And so back in France, before the move, I went to see a psychic and she said, you go ahead. This is going to be wonderful. You're meant to live there. So she appeased my fears. And because of that, I thought, oh, I'd love to have another reading a couple of years after I moved. So I did. And I went to see this woman. She's called Joy. She's absolutely radiant and felt like a really warm person. And towards the end of the reading, she said to me something that actually upset me quite a lot. She said,
Oh,
do you realize that you have angel dust coming out of your hands? And, most people would say, oh, that's so wonderful. But for me, it was upsetting because it was challenging my very existence. And it was not something that I even understood. I was like, what do you mean, angel dust coming up my hands? That didn't even compute for me. I had no idea what this meant. But what this did is to sort of push me onto a journey to try and find some answers. And I had already a few little wake up calls before that I describe in my memoir, Spiritual Lawyer. I was, in fact, if I'm not sure it was the angels, but I escaped a bombing in Paris, and I never understood how. I was floored to. I was in the metro, getting to a place where I was going to do some shopping, and literally I couldn't get out of the carriage. It was almost like something kept me in my place. And then I found
mm,
out literally 15 minutes later what had happened and how I would have been exactly at that place where sadly 7 people were killed and 55 injured. So I had already had these wondering moments of, what is going on? Do we have guardian angels? How does this whole thing work? My dad was a very devout Catholic, and his best friend was a priest. And so I went to them to try and find some answers, and none of the answers they gave me satisfied me. Even though, I really loved them dearly, traditional religion didn't have much for me. So I started from that moment where I was told about the angels. I wondered about their existence. Let's put it this way. And because I had this lawyer mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to take it incrementally, right? One step at a time. Let's experiment. Very practical. I'm still very practical with it. And interestingly enough, a couple of years after that reading, I was made redundant. It was quite stressful. And a year before the whole restructuring of that company where I worked for was started, I received this. I'm going to show it. I don't know if you're going to do the video. I received this feather from nowhere, from the sky, fell onto my
Yeah.
hand when I was asking, what next? What's supposed to happen? And even then, I didn't understand. I saw this beautiful white feather, quite big, like 10 centimeters long. And I was like, but what do you mean? And it's only this year, like last month, that I realized that that feather was a sign from the angels to say, we're going to be here all the way supporting you. Even though something really difficult is going to come your way, we're here. So just pay attention. We're here. We're here to support you. And it's exactly what happened. Just when I thought I had no more hope, they stepped in and helped in ways that I didn't know could happen. So that's a bit my story in a nutshell of how I went from being this very rational, very logical, and I still am. This is why I think I've offered to the angel space something a bit different, because I keep it grounded. I don't have religious beliefs that I push into it. Um, for me, the angels are messengers of love and hope, and they're here to support us. But most of us don't want the help because we live in a culture where we're encouraged to consider that doing things on your own, like success, doesn't matter if someone's helped you to get there. So there's a bit of that resistance that sometimes people have. But I find that interesting. We can have conversations around that.
Angie, we definitely can. And I love the way that you've given us your story. And I know that we touched on this before we started recording. We're going to do a very special episode of Sacred Space and talk about that journey from both of us, that background with the law, to moving into this spiritual space. So look out for that, everybody, to all our listeners. Angie, I love the way you talked about the feather dropping down. And that happens to me a lot. And I absolutely love that confirmation. Just when I'm in those moments when I think, oh, I'm just having a really bad day, something special happens, like a feather dropping. Or I have found feathers in my car for no apparent reason. And all of a sudden, I get these goosebumps and it just cheers me up immensely. And I love it that, you have those experiences as well. Angie, you have mentioned a little bit about an angelic experience, and I know that you've talked about listening to some of the other podcasts. One of my previous guests, Angela Aurora Smith, she had a similar experience being on a train, and the angels guided her not to go to a particular place because if she would have been there at that exact moment when she was planning to be there, she would have been like you in the middle of, well, for her, it was a terror attack, a bomb attack. And it's one of those things I do believe very much that we are being looked after. So thank you for sharing that first story. But I know you've got some other angel stories. Would you like to share some of those with us, please?
So I have so many of them. It's a bit difficult to choose, but we're talking a lot about terrorism here, and which is affecting. And I know there's been a very recent incident in Sydney, and I
Mm.
want to say what happened when I avoided that terrorist incident in Paris in 1986. My thoughts also went for the people who were the victims of these attacks. And I did wonder, why was I preserved? Why weren't the other ones preserved? And and I think it's very important to keep in mind that yeah, we have been saved, but there's other people and what happened there. And perhaps, and I don't have the answers for sure, but through all the experiences I've had and all the work that I've done with the angels, sometimes our souls choose a certain outcome that our personality wouldn't. So it is possible that some of the people who were there chose to be there for a specific purpose, either for themselves or for the collective, to highlight a problem. Um, but it could also be that they couldn't hear their angelic guidance because they were too busy or too upset or too closed down to this kind of guidance. So um, I know I haven't really answered your question about the angels in that respect, but I think I'm very aware of making sure that I'm not offensive talking about guardian angels and protection when some other people might feel that they haven't been. But if you open yourself to the help, I think that's where it's important to do that, is to say, okay, please help me. You don't know how they're going to do it, and they do. So I one of the most profound experience I had was sat in my jacuzzi. I nearly died 3 times before I moved to the UK from um, blockages of energy around my throat. I'm just going to put it this way. And the
Mhm.
last one was a huge cyst that grew on my thyroid that nearly suffocated me. And I understand all of why this happened, and that this is actually what set me on my course to understand more about energy and healing. But I was sat maybe 7, 8 years later. I had had the surgery. I still have a scar, and I was sat in my jacuzzi. At the time, I had a jacuzzi. I don't have it anymore. I do miss it though. And I had this beam of light that literally went onto my thyroid, and I felt that I was healed. I didn't need to take the medication anymore. But I wanted some sort of confirmation because I was a bit scared of just, I've never stopped medication without someone advocating it medically. And nobody would want to tell me. So in the end, I just had to trust it, stop my meds, and nothing happened. I was definitely healed. So that was quite the experience. And um so yeah, that's one that will stay with me. I didn't ask for healing either. I was just sat in this energy, relaxing and enjoying my day, and suddenly I felt this beautiful energy. It was quite mind blowing, I have to say.
That's beautiful. And it just goes to show that you're meant to be here still. Otherwise, well, you probably wouldn't have been saved and protected. It's interesting. I want to go back to this topic that you opened the door to. And I think it's a valuable thing to mention to listeners and viewers because it is a delicate topic. And I'm very familiar with past life regression when we talk about the choices that the soul makes. I've had many clients, especially in my practice in Australia, where I was working with them from that perspective of the choices they've made in this lifetime, the paths that they decided to explore, and what some of those lessons were. And it's interesting, you talk about, well, why were you saved or why was I saved? Why were some people saved and not other people? And I'm with you. And I'm going to say this very delicately because I do also not want to offend anybody, but why do some people pass whereas other people stay behind? And you brought up that it's about the collective. And I do believe in a lot of ways there are those lessons where souls come onto the earth plane to teach other souls a bigger picture lesson. Think about the tragedy that is going on in Gaza and Palestine and the Middle East. I think about the wars. You know, why did so many people die in the Holocaust? So perhaps that was exactly that they've chosen to teach us what that means, what that message is to humanity. Would you agree with that?
So it's very interesting you should mention that, because I have an experience in the Holocaust Museum in Paris where I went to pay my respect. And I think I talk about it in my memoir. And I saw an angel feather literally tied to the monument inside. And when I walked down, I'd never been there, even though I'm a Parisian. When I walked down there, I felt this angelic presence all around me and incredibly uplifting. And I felt they had a message to tell me. And I do feel this were the souls of the people who were um, who died in this terrible times. But I think I was shown then that it was definitely a collective effort from them to highlight how far human beings can go if they're not stopped. and for this to be a peg in the ground for us to remember not never to do it again. And I think it's particularly important right now in our
Yes.
times where there's a rise in fascism, a rise in hatred, sadly in all of the European countries and other countries as well, that to be reminded that they died for a purpose, and we need, and it's not just the Jewish, even though I absolutely honor the Jewish pain around this. But there were also too many members of the LGBT community that were killed in those camps, and there were also disabled people, mentally ill people. They just wanted to purify not just of the Jews, but everything that didn't fit a certain, and so yeah, I wanted to highlight that. But the fact that I was so surprised, I didn't expect anything going into this. Oh, I expected actually the opposite: to feel pain and to feel dread and to feel a dark energy, and actually everything, it was angelic energy in that museum, and that really blew my mind. And I love how the angels, I know when the angels speak to me because they will give me information that is unusual, fresh, that I wouldn't have thought myself. And that was
Yeah.
definitely one of those moments.
It's interesting what you just brought up, and it brings up a memory for me as well. I was in Berlin a couple of Christmases ago. My husband and I have gone to Christmas markets, but there is a memorial in Berlin as well as a tribute to Holocaust victims. And my husband said, "I don't really want to go in. I don't really want to be there. Why do you want to go?" And interestingly, well, and I don't think I've mentioned this, my background is in actual fact German. I was born in Germany, and I do feel a lot of that, um, shall we say, sadness, specifically not just for the Holocaust victims, but also because of the effect that it's had on the German people. So I still have a
Yeah.
connection with that. And when I went there to that particular place, I felt not dread, not fear, but I felt an incredible sense of calm and an incredible sense of peace. And I thought that was interesting because, like you, I thought I would have the opposite kind of feeling around being in that place. But I do believe that part of these experiences, whether for you or for me, is also about the healing these places offer. You had that angelic sign, I had my own kind of feelings as well, that it is about being at peace and knowing that in their own way that they too are at peace. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we can't generalize, and we can't know if all of them are at peace, but I think some of them
Correct.
are. And
Yeah.
that's what matters. And it's still important to send. Well, I wanted also to mention, because angels is also about communicating with them. And for me, whenever I hear of a tragedy, I always ask the angels to go and help. So if I see an ambulance, if I see a fire truck, if I see a police car, or if witness an accident, I send angels, 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 and everybody can do that. And I wanted everybody to know that as well,
Yes,
that they're here to
absolutely.
support in ways, yeah, and they're always available, but we have to ask.
We do have to ask, and thank you for mentioning that. This is available to everybody. This is not just for you and for me and for all the guests that I've had on the show.
Yeah.
Everybody can do this, and to send that beautiful message up to the universe, to our angels, to say, "Look, can you please step in and help a particular situation?" Please, if you are
Mm.
called to do that, then please do that. In terms of your angels and your angelic experiences, Angie, what would you say, how has that influenced your life?
It has completely transformed my life. And I think on a personal level, up to the point where I witnessed all these encounters and connections, I didn't think I had a chance to make an impact on the world at all. I felt too small. I felt insignificant. And I'm not saying I'm important either, but whenever I witnessed suffering, I was finally able to do something by sending those angels, asking for help from the angels. And I knew, and so I'm going to share one more story if I have time. I
Go
realized
ahead,
that
go
you
ahead.
like to keep them short and sweet, your episodes, but I once went to a psychic a couple of years after the angel dust one, And I sat in front of her. It was in the One Body Spirit Fair. And she just looked at me and she started laughing. And I was like, what's going on? She's, this is incredible. What I'm seeing is incredible. She says, I'm seeing this scroll and it goes on and on and on and it goes around the world and it comes back. And it's just this, and it says, these are the prayers that you've done for people. And the angels want you to know that they've been heard.
That I don't know about any of you listeners, but that touched me deeply. I felt the goosies go all through me when you said that. It's so beautiful.
So I want people to understand that it's, yeah, they might still think it's a theory, but I had the confirmation myself. And up to that point, I just did it because it felt right. But once I had that psychic tell me, actually, the angels are listening, keep doing it. I want to invite more people to, I'm feeling the goosebumps as well and all this wonderful energy. So perhaps that's the invitation I want to leave with people. Even if you don't believe, just give it a try. The first time I tried, it was literally to ask for a parking space. And it felt a bit selfish, but I was a single mom of two. I was super stressed. I worked full time. I had two little ones. I remember we were going to family therapy and I needed a parking space. I was almost late and literally a car pulled in front of me and I felt such a relief. So even for the smallest thing we can ask because they care about our well-being. They
They
care
do.
about us having an easier life. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And, you're right. Sometimes we think, oh, am I being selfish asking for a car parking space? But when you need it, you need it. Especially if you've got two little kids and you're a single mother and you're running late, it's going to cause stress. So absolutely
Yeah.
get them to help you. Angie, I'm going to
Because
take
we
this
always
time
ask
now.
for others otherwise, don't we, Dagmar? We tend to ask for everybody but ourselves. So this is also my invitation. There's enough for everyone. In fact, I don't, and I'm going to stop after that. I realize we're coming. What I want to say is that there's so many idle angels who are waiting for us to ask for help because what would you say? 70% of the population don't think about asking for help from the angels, maybe even more. And because of
Yeah,
that, they're just waiting. So you're not going to take it away from someone else. You're
no,
just
that's
gonna
right.
give the angels a job that they're waiting for you to give them.
That's a beautiful reframe for everyone to take away. Yes, that so many people don't ask, and they are waiting for us to be invited, to invite them into our lives. So please take that away to all our listeners. In terms of, we spoke earlier about the opportunity to talk about your ebook. Would you like to mention that now, that you'd like to offer that for our listeners and viewers?
Yes, thank you. And it actually quite ties well with what we've just discussed. I have an ebook called The Simple Way to Ask Help from the Universe. And of course, it's the angels and the universe as a bigger container. And if people go to my website called spirituallawyer.co.uk, they will find a link to sign up for my newsletter. And then as soon as they sign up, they will receive the ebook. So thank you for asking.
Oh, look, my pleasure. And I will have all of the details for Angie on the web page when the podcast comes out. In terms of how can people connect with you, you already mentioned your websites. Do you have any social media pages where people might connect with you directly that
So I
way?
have yeah, most of my social media are called spiritual lawyers. So I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram account, I have a YouTube channel, but I'm also a lot on LinkedIn because actually I believe there's angels of business and angels of work, and I like to specifically help people in their careers or in their business by asking the angels for help because that's probably one of the areas that most people absolutely don't think about that kind of
Mm,
work. And it is important because I feel that businesses can um, have such a positive impact on people's lives if they function from a higher perspective, and that's very dear to my heart.
thank you for sharing. So if you feel drawn to ask for some help, maybe even contact Angie, get in touch with her either through her socials or getting onto her website, spirituallawyer.co.uk, and see if it's worth having a conversation with Angie to see how she might be able to help you. Definitely, if you feel that pull, please do get in touch. Any final thoughts that you would like to share with us, Angie?
So, yes, if I was going to add one thing to our conversation, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, is that you don't need to be a good person for angels to want to help you. You don't need to be pure. You don't even need to be religious or even spiritual. I want that highlight that because I think there's also a lot of people who say, "Yeah, well, I have done things I'm not very proud of," and I'm one of these people. I cheated on my first husband. I'm not proud of this at all, and yet the angels will help me if I ask for help. So it's that I think, yeah, I just want to break the barriers between people and the angelic help that they can get. At any point in time, you can ask for help, no matter what you've done, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. They love people unconditionally, and I think that's the biggest and most important message of all.
That is an absolutely beautiful message. Thank you for sharing. We are having a human experiences and we have our frailties, we have our flaws, we make mistakes, definitely. So I know I fit into that category as well. I've made plenty of my own mistakes, or should I call them speed bumps along the road? I prefer to call them that. And I know the angels definitely help me. They help so many other people. So never ever think that you can't be helped by the angels. Thank you for that final message. Angie, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I hope that's been something wonderful for all of our listeners and viewers to take on board. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the show, please share the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you happen to know other people who could benefit from it, you might also like to leave a 5-star review on the platform where you are listening, because the more reviews means people will get to tune into it and really get to have those benefits as well. In the meantime, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration.